Jeff is throwing me on air. He's not wasting any time. He said, let's go. Don't sit here for the second verse of this song. We've heard it. Kickstart my heart. We get it. I wanted to let it play a little bit. I still don't have a time where we actually go in on this song. So Jeff's calling the shots, which I like it. Shane and I are happy to have a board op because as a fill-in board op, I did okay. I got us on air, but we didn't know if we were on air or not. So we're better off at these two microphones. But happy Wanna Get Away Day, Tapas Day. I got to be careful in how I say that. And Sushi Day. That's what we're celebrating. Do we have a favorite out of that, Shane? Do we have one that you're leaning towards?
I mean, I'm always good with sushi. I when I was younger, I didn't know exactly like what was considered sushi and what was how to eat sushi. Everyone would get a California roll or a Philly roll or something. And the more I was around it, the more that I realized that was kind of more of a cliche thing, that people who didn't really eat sushi would eat those. So I'm more of, when I see the fresh slices of fish laid out on the plate with some sort of a ponzu sauce and then some sort of an herb over it, maybe some sort of, an extra addition to the sauce, like baby fish eggs or something, like garnishing it, but it was all a part of the flavor. And then I learned, not to dip everything in soy sauce, some of it's really good with it, but also a lot of them have enough flavor and the things that they put in there with it are meant to kind of supplement the flavor. So you don't need to wash it in soy sauce before you eat it. So I've come to have an appreciation for that, for like a yellowtail ponzu or, there's all kinds of stuff that I really like. That when I go places, I'll actually order a few small plates of that, and that'll be my dinner. And I really enjoy it. The tapas, I come to enjoy those, kind of enjoying a bunch of different flavors, but without kind of committing all to one flavor. It's very similar to sushi for me, that I enjoy kind of the variety of the different flavors that you can have. The Wanna Get Away, I mean, I think that's always. But
that would be favorite destination.
Yeah.
I feel like do you have a favorite destination that you've been to, or a dream kind of bucket list place that you say, hey, this is the number one place that I want to go before?
If I could say a bucket list, maybe like Tahiti or Bora Bora. Never been. Looks really cool in the pictures and stuff that I've seen. Favorite place I've been to, I would say Anguilla. I think I've mentioned that before on here. It's just a really non-commercialized Caribbean island. The locals are really cool, and it's a really chill kind of beach bar type atmosphere without everything being a big resort that's commercialized with crazy expensive marketing for everything, and kind of like a circus within a resort type place. It's you drive down the road with a cab driver. He sees his friends sitting under a tree. He says that, "Are you guys in a hurry?" "No, we're not." "All right, we're going to stop and cool it with my friends." And they might just light up a little bit and relax for a while, and then we're on our way after a little bit. So it's kind of a cool atmosphere there, and it's beautiful. So that's probably been my favorite place.
Now, by light up, Jeff, I'm assuming he means they meet Shane Graham and their faces light up. That's how I interpreted that. Not exactly not lighting an object of any sort.
I don't know. I don't know. It was them participating and partaking. So who was I to stop them?
It is funny how I've been in a lot of situations like that where they are very friendly oftentimes in these other countries. It's very unassuming. Like, hey, I remember that in Greece. I'd gone scuba diving, and the crew that I went with wanted to do I think it was ouzo. It was the local alcohol, and I don't drink alcohol, so I was then sneaking the shot to my buddy that was there with me. So he was doing double, and I literally found him passed out on the beach later on that day. But it was a nice black sand beach that he was passed out on. So it was a nice beach, at least. If you're going to pass out, that's the beach to do it at.
Yeah.
Although then it's radiating a lot of heat too. But those are good. Well, so Jeff and I are over here eating meat sticks from Sobeys. So I don't know, do we have a lot to add to the sushi discussion? Can you help with the sushi discussion? I know I can't really.
I can't.
Jeff.
No, I've never tried sushi, so no. I like the want to get away day with Shane. I want to get away with Shane. Go to some of the places he's
Yeah, it sounds cool.
Good to me.
Yeah. I mean, people light up wherever he goes. So, so why would you not want to go somewhere with him? I do have a couple sushi stories. It is funny about the Philadelphia cream cheese ones, because it's like, yeah, I've lived in Asia. I didn't see a lot of cream cheese when I was over there.
I bet you did.
So just sticking that in the middle. Who thought of that though? Who thought, hey, this has rice and salmon, and now I want to put cream cheese in there? I don't understand that combination.
I'll be honest with you. When I think about the Philly rolls and even the California rolls, I think about 18 to 22-year-old sorority girls in college that want to sound fancy and say, we're going out to sushi. And they're getting Philly and California rolls just to say that they're eating sushi. That's the stigma that I kind of put on that. Is it fair? Probably no. But I'd be willing to bet there's probably a few guys that have probably taken girls on dates to places like that didn't know anything about sushi, doing the exact same thing because they thought it was fancy. But it really isn't supposed to be fancy. It's supposed to be simple. And then it's supposed to, when you have the dishes that the chefs are artists and they understand how flavors and things work together, they actually do a really good job of pairing it with the right, accoutrement of flavor, whether it's a sliced grape or a sliced pear or apple, and then adding that to some sort of a sauce that goes well with that fish, whether that fish is acidic in flavor or bland in flavor or spicy or whatever it may be. Those guys, it's really impressive how they put those things together, and it's kind of more of a, even the plate, even the presentation of it is actually very decorative with the way that they do it, versus when we all think sushi, everyone always just thinks of, when you go through the grocery store and you see the rolls packed into a little plastic container, and it's got its little wasabi and soy sauce container that goes with it. And that's that. I don't see that really as sushi now that I've learned, but also, I think a lot of us have learned things about certain types of foods and drinks over the years that we kind of mature our way through it as we go anyway.
So no gas station sushi for Shane Graham. I have a family member that's typically where he gets it.
No, I will not. But there are certain things that I would trust gas station sushi more than. I just won't say what they are on the air.
Oh, that was going to be my follow-up question. It's probably whatever's rotating in the case next to the sushi.
Could I use my Speedway points for sushi?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's better than that hot dog that's been, sitting there since the Carter administration.
On the roller since 1978.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, but there we go. We got our sushi coverage. Yeah. So Jeff and I always joke about getting sponsors based on what we're talking about. If we're going to get a sushi sponsor, that's all you, Shane, because I can't do it. The way you explained it was great. And I mean, the presentation, I feel like you've got to maybe work with one of these places, because you were talking about the presentation and everything. And yeah, I've only had a couple of these sad Philadelphia rolls. That's the only ones I've tried. I didn't even want them. I know I don't like sushi. I don't like any seafood, but I was at an all-you-can-eat place. I do like this rule of sushi. I'm curious about this, because why is sushi the only thing that you can do all you can eat, but you have to pay if you have pieces left? Have you ever been to a place like that had that rule?
I don't know if this makes me spoiled or not, I've never been to a buffet sushi place.
Well, I'm not actually talking about a buffet. I'm talking
okay.
about a restaurant where you go in, you order it, all normal, presentation, all that kind of stuff that you're talking about. But if you then order the plateful, and you can order as many platefuls as you want, but if you leave 8 pieces, they're going to charge you for those 8 pieces because you ordered them and then left them on the table. You didn't eat them.
I actually agree with that.
I like that as a rule.
I've never seen it, but I think anywhere that does an all you can eat, because is it fair that you just order up a bunch and try to take it home with you? No, because that's going to be taken advantage of. So I think it should probably teach people like, hey, if you're going to eat a lot, but don't waste it and don't think you're taking it home. So if you're going to order so much extra that you're going to take away from other people having the option to have because you've consumed, once it's on your plate and on your table, they're not going to take it back and give it to somebody else. So now that food has gone to waste. And I grew up, don't waste your food. So I think that's great. You got to pay for it, and now you can let them take it home if they want, since they paid for it.
Exactly, and that's the situation we were in. I was there with some buddies. They over-ordered. They ended up with way too many of those Philadelphia rolls, and my buddy was looking across the table at me going, man, I wish you liked seafood because you're the biggest eater here, and you're eating these gyoza and pot stickers and stuff. And I just couldn't see him. I couldn't stand to see him suffering, so I started just kind of throwing him down, but I did not care for that. Cream cheese did not help me take that sushi in, but I do like that as a rule in whatever the restaurant is. I thought that was a good rule. The people that we were with, they wanted to go throw them away in the bathroom and do stuff like that. I was like, no, that's not in the spirit of the law. No, I don't think. No. So yeah, we got a lot of mileage out of sushi. That's a good one for sure. I wasn't sure where you would stand on that one, but it is a simple food, and it is mostly, I guess you got to deal with the rice. But if you don't have to have the rice because there's the sashimi.
Never
right?
order the rice.
Yeah,
I do the sashimi or even there's a name for the ones where it's typically just the little slivers kind of laid down in some sort of a flavored sauce with other things that go with it. And, you take a little, leaf of cilantro and put that on top of it. And then there's something else that goes on it. And then there's maybe some sort of something else. And then it's just a sauce, and you don't have it on a bed of rice, and you don't have it in a roll, and you don't dip it in soy sauce. That's some of my favorite stuff. And there's certain places around the country when I know that they have that on the menu, I'm actually really excited about that.
When we talk about food, often Shane brings up a sommelier for that particular kind of food, like a cheeseburger. I think Shane should be a sushi sommelier. I think you've got what it takes.
I'm not at that level, but nor would I say I'm an aficionado or whatever you would want to call that. But that would be something that there are places that actually have people that come out and explain everything to you and explain why they added this to this dish and why there's this and why it goes with that and all that. It's really cool when you hear them explain it, and then when you taste it and you enjoy it, it's a cool experience. I will say sometimes some of those places come with a premium because they're very proud of their food, so that premium can hit you at the end of the night.
Well, if you want discount sushi, I think you have to go to the gas station. I think that's where you have to
bring your rewards card.
Yeah, exactly. Just get Jeff's Speedway card and then get some sushi from there. Well, wow, we've taken up the whole first segment with sushi talk. I would have taken the under on that, but we made it over. We're gonna bring on Jake Grossman next, our analytics expert. He's, I think, got some kicking and punting analytics. I always like him to do that when Shane's around, and then we want to ask him about the first, to my knowledge, at least in Division I, coach of AI in football. So I thought that would be an interesting subject. But we'll talk with him after the break. You're listening to Shane Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Happy to bring on this next guest. He's our analytics expert on the show, and I have a feeling we'll be talking more analytics as we go with this new coach of AI thing happening, and I'm sure that'll be a trend. We'll talk to him about that. But this is Jake Grossman. He's got an analytics podcast that I'm rooting for him to bring back, but it was one of my favorite podcasts, and we'll talk about some Lions contracts and hopefully some kicking and punting analytics with Shane Graham. But do you have a favorite sushi roll? Jake, I bet you didn't think I was going to ask you what your favorite sushi was.
I did not. I when I read the tweet that you put out earlier, I was expecting favorite tapa, so I was thinking about that one. But no, my favorite sushi roll, probably salmon avocado.
Okay, so Shane, he said the salmon avocado one. I don't see. Shane's our expert on the sushi. That's not my ballywick. I was worried about saying tapas many times. I feel like that could be misconstrued as something else, Jake. So I'm avoiding that one, especially with my voice being a little shredded right now. So, but that's a good pick. They're all going to be good picks because I haven't had any of them. I don't do any seafood, but no, I'm curious. I'm always excited to talk to you. I'm curious if you have any kicking and punting stuff for us, but we'll start out with that coach of AI thing, because I'm curious how both you guys, you and Shane, take this in, because Shane is big on the analytics side with the kicking and has a lot of his own stuff that he tracks and stuff for his coaching side of things. But this is all developing at a pace where I don't know that I'm even going to be able to understand it once we get into the AI thing. And is this guy like a hologram? Is the coach of AI, is he like a hologram on the sidelines? You're gonna have to help me out here, Jake.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question. It's something I definitely have been, seeing more and more of, as I think we all have. I mean, I think it's really just an extension of the analytics roles that we've seen. Like, for example, one guy that, I know from my time at Michigan was the director of analytics at USC, Connor McQuiston, and now he's the director of AI for USC football. And I think it's just kind of like a natural evolution of things where AI is really just an extension of everything else that you can do, because it really just enables things to become more efficient in terms of, and more voluminous. So you can build more complex models with more data pieces, with more sets of data. You can build, it really just increases your manpower in a variety of ways. And then it also sort of just like extends beyond what you could ordinarily do with analytics, because it can be applied really across the board in terms of, if you think about like play diagramming and how you can sort of allow AI to assist you with the optimal sequencing and things like that can really just enable like really anything that a coach wants to do. But then this coach of AI is really sort of, I'd say, like the person coordinating all of this, because they're the one who's building all of the underlying models that can be used, and programs and whatever workflows that can be used by all the, like, everyone else on the coaching staff. And in turn, to what extent they make it available to the players, they can really just like sort of just allow this massive set of information to be available. And it's really just like the next stage of things, the way the internet broadened access to information, then analytics allowed us to find ways to utilize that information. It's sort of just putting a multiplier on both of those things, because it's allowing that information to really be synthesized in a much greater way, and in ways that are more highly sophisticated than what's possible just under, human manpower.
So I've actually been waiting for this to happen. I felt like that since AI has kind of turned into what it's turned into, that someone was going to find a way to apply it to, whether it's preemptive, reactive, however it is, to kind of, predict tendencies as far as, we've tried to use analytics and we can turn it down to percentages wise. But in order to see AI doing all that, I think Michigan had somebody that was really good at kind of keeping track of a lot of things, and had some computer spreadsheets all full of a lot of great information. They should bring back Connor Stallions and have him do that at Michigan.
Oh, I've seen a documentary about him.
and I'm kind of being facetious, but also like that's the kind of attention to detail that he was really good at what he did, to be honest. Now, did he take it too far? Whatever, not my place to judge. I think we all can move on from that. But I feel like it's people like that can kind of gather that information and then feed it into programs are the people that are going to make the best use out of this. Now, there's even stuff that when people would leave a playbook behind and the other team would find it and give it to the other team's next opponent, just because you know the playbook of the other team doesn't know exactly when they're going to call those plays. And honestly, even if you know the play, it doesn't always work to your favor if you know the play, because everything has to kind of go a certain way to defend it. But obviously, sometimes if you know it's a screen pass, you can jump the screen pass and, pick it off for 6 or whatever. But who knows how this AI is going to work when it comes to kind of predictive behavior and play calling and even understanding tendencies of individual players. I mean, if they plug it in to have an AI program follow one player throughout the season and see what his tendencies are, and then they've got a program for every single player, and then they find a way to tie that all together, who knows how complicated and predictive this can become.
Absolutely. And I think it's like, it's interesting because I feel like we're talking about it in a few different facets. We're talking about it in terms of how it can be used, like in terms of like on like at a game level on a player, on like a, like in terms of like helping like a team, like, do the optimal set of play calls and like handle their opponent on like a game by game basis. But I feel like a lot of the implementation we're also seeing is really like on that sort of like front office lens too, in terms of scouting and data analysis and all these sorts of things. Like actually just coming back to like Michigan, like they hired a guy who like I think had founded this platform. I think it was called Scout Smarter, something like that. And it was pretty much just something that like sort of just like used AI to generate scouting reports, collect data, do player analysis, comparison, produce some like prediction models based off all of this data that they had compiled, do like sentiment analysis based on the information in the scouting reports, and using the vast database of scouting reports to sort of marry the human and the analytics of it in terms of like empowering these scouting perceptions, but then using AI to say like get more information out of them. The idea of like, like how quality is the scout been? When a scout says a certain thing about a player, how predictive is that? And what kind of things are we looking for in these scouting reports that wouldn't necessarily show up in the data? Because I think, everyone kind of understands that like, while, it's easiest to focus on what's, displayed in data and what you can sort of analyze, there's also stuff that is just intangible. And being able to leverage AI to bring the intangibles and make them measurable, and then using that measurability to then use them to actually be able to create insights and marry that with the analytics and the core data analytics to make decisions. I mean, that's where I feel like the teams can really shine, because I mean, you've seen things like, I know the Rams have done a lot of this. Like there's a lot of alpha, I guess, to be gained by sort of marrying the two. And I feel like that's the next stage of analytics, where like the initial analytics, coming to like power was this idea of like the data is going to tell you more and be more reliable and more predictive than relying just purely on the human. And the next stage is, well, no, the best possible answer is sort of taking all of it, because there's a reason these guys have been in the field for so long. They do have things that they can see that isn't in the data, and incorporating that into the analysis only makes it better. It's just about incorporating the analysis in the right way, and that's what the AI really facilitates.
And I can even see it. So I don't know how much you know about like what the full staff of a team does, right? But you've got like an entire staff of the guys that do a lot of the grunt work. So like the GAs, the analysts, those guys, and they're the ones watching the film, and they're drawing out on their programs the playbooks. Not necessarily the playbooks, but drawing out the plays that happen as they happen and the frequency that they happen, so that they can build scout cards for the scout team to run against their own offenses or defenses. So that's a lot of tedious work when you do that. And I can't imagine if someone came up with a way to say, hey, take this film, here's the format I want you to draw it, draw me every single play that was run during this game, and then if you think it was supposed to be the same play, don't show it twice, but tell me the frequency that play was run, and the time it could save from people drawing circle by circle, arrow by arrow, X by X, whatever it may be, and to be able to put that out so that you can make scout cards very easy and scouting reports, the manpower that could save and the tedious work, so that person could do something else a little more productive. would be amazing. And I don't know how many people know that that's kind of what goes into it, but coaches don't just watch the film and talk to themselves and maybe write a couple notes. There are people literally drawing player by player movement patterns and alignments and what do they do, and if they did it on this play, if there was a different coverage, they would do it differently on this next play or whatever it may be. It's a lot of work that goes into it, and I can tell you those guys that are GAs and analysts usually work 15 to 20 hours a day, if not more sometimes, and I think you could probably bring a little bit better quality of life that maybe I would consider getting back into coaching if they can.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
He's officially announcing it here. You've got connections at Michigan. Maybe you can get him over there, Jake.
No. I'm definitely not getting back into coaching.
I mean, I will say, like, I think that's, like, it really does, like, whether it's a quality of life adjustment or just really allows them to spend those 15, 20 hours a day instead of focusing on, like, spending so much of that time charting everything and getting all that data together and spending more time analyzing the different alignments that they operated of. What kind of plays are they operating out of the same alignments? What tendencies are we seeing when they're lined up in certain formations or even a certain player in a specific alignment? I mean, all these sorts of, like, analysis that, like, can now be done because its time is no longer being spent doing that charting is a great illustration of how it's just making teams smarter and making them more effective. And that is because it's happening on both sides. It's really going to be interesting to see in both the short term in terms of who adopts it faster and what kind of edges they get. And then the long run, when everyone theoretically will adopt this, how that changes the chess match of how teams operate out of certain alignments, like, and how they sort of try to show certain things and then deviate from them in order to sort of trick teams that are almost playing, being, you know, like a little too smart. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this, like, broadening of data access, which started with, I would say, like, you know, when all the teams got their PFF subscriptions, and then has definitely broadened since then. But it feels like AI is just going to take this to a whole new level. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that all shakes out.
I am curious to see what the ebb and flow is going to be with this, because I feel like, kind of like you guys are saying, it's going to be adopted once it kind of catches on, and then everybody's going to be doing it. And then there's going to be a course correction of, like, okay, we've got to get more, because even with, I think of, like, even with the idea of fourth down calls, let's say for Dan Campbell, a guy who's hyper aggressive, and we've talked about that before, Jake, and it was a big subject matter for a couple of the recent seasons here. And that always involves a little bit of analytics and a little bit of kind of gut analysis. And you can't totally take the gut analysis out. You've got to have that. And I think some people are better at that than others. But if you're just a computer against a computer, then that's going to become a little tougher. So I think, like you said, Jake, factoring in that human engineering part is going to be important, because that's where you can kind of get that leg up.
Right. And it's a question also of, like, I think because of, like, the resource spend that's required to implement AI, like, I'm torn between, is it going to be a situation where it sort of democratizes this information, where it's cheaper now for, I guess, like, you know, like clubs that don't have the, you know, like we're thinking like college football, like smaller schools that don't have the ability to hire necessarily the same level of staff as, like, a University of Michigan. Are they now going to be able to sort of have their same level of insights? Or is it going to be a situation where the vast resource spend that Michigan has it sort of creates a rich get richer situation where they're going to be able to implement AI in ways that smaller schools just don't have the abilities to do so? And I feel like it really could shake out both ways. And that's just a question also that is way outside the scope of, like, this conversation in terms of, like, token cost and, like, all these sorts of things, and model, you know, democratization, like how easy, like, what's the level of accessibility here? To what extent are bespoke tools for football being built and then being utilized, kind of like the one I talked about a second ago in terms of Michigan, versus then just you sort of using, like, the larger, you know, general models like the Claude code and whatnot that can obviously make things more efficient, but maybe aren't as tailored to the needs of teams. So I feel like because it's still, like, while it feels like, oh, this is happening everywhere and all around, it's still relatively nascent, because, you know, if we view it from the lens of how we viewed, like, you know, the growth of the internet, I mean, we're still very much in, like, you know, the 1990s here. And obviously the internet became a whole different thing than I think anyone really foresaw. I mean, so I think it's going to be fascinating. And, you know, I think it would be premature to claim to know how everything's going to shake out.
Well, and like you talked about, is it going to be something that everyone's going to have the opportunity to use this, or is someone going to take it beyond a Claude or beyond a Gemini or beyond whatever, and then it's going to be a race to the best format, and then the best format, then someone's going to be trying to create the format that, say, the D2 schools can afford, that the FBS schools could afford, but the other schools couldn't. Is there going to be a model that's going to try to be a little bit cheaper for everyone? So you're going to probably have that race to create the version that you can make it a premium, and only the schools that have can get it. And then some schools are going to say, well, we don't want to be without it, so we're going to pay more for it. I mean, I've seen that done on so many different levels, from PFF to the Catapult XOS system for the video stuff. Mixed with some of the other companies that do a lot of, like Huddle, and some of the other companies that do the video gathering and archiving type programs for the teams to use. It definitely creates a tier, and I think it's going to be a race to see who's going to create like that one true football AI program, and then it's going to be who's going to trickle down after that, more than likely. And who's going to be able to have more of their staff able to perfect the use of it. And then some people are going to be who's going to have enough manpower to mess with that and do the other stuff that they might have to do as well.
Right. And I think that also invites the interesting question of, like, will it necessarily, like, you have to assume that there's going to be outside providers, but there's also definitely going to be teams specifically looking at the NFL level that are just going to be building their own tools because they don't want to be using the same thing as everyone else, because you want to be differentiated, and you also want to be focused on the things of whoever, is leading your organization wants to be focused on. So that means building, unique tools that don't necessarily exist for every other team. Like, I know the Carolina Panthers this offseason in their draft preparation, Dr. Eric Eager over there, who, a legend of PFF, of course, he built like a tool that was kind of like a pairwise ranking where it would allow all their scouts to basically, get like almost like two players on a screen, like in an app, and just say, okay, I like this player more than this one, this player more than this one, that player more than that one. Like, and using that, they created effectively like a crowdsourced ranking among their scouts of the players that they were scouting for the draft. And it's creating just like, so it's also like interesting to see, like, okay, like teams have different approaches for how they want to leverage technology and how they're going to use AI to basically just increase the speed with which they can build things as well that aren't necessarily AI native in terms of doing things that couldn't have been done, using normal computer programming, but simply really hastening the speed at which you could do things that previously would have not been feasible in the timelines that they've been able to do.
This is a very interesting conversation so far. We got to take a break. I want to come back with it. I've got to put everything that you guys have said into Ask Jeeves and then figure out what you've said, and then I'll come back after the break. But no, we're going to pick up the AI conversation with Jake Grossman after the break. Stick with us. You're listening to Shane Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Coming back here with Jake Grossman, having a really interesting discussion about AI and kind of the prevalence in sports. I think this is going to be one of our bailiwicks on the show because it just is such an expansive topic. Like you said, Jake, I think that two of the points that stuck out to me was you talking about how there's so many directions to use it in, and then I hadn't thought of the point that Shane was making about the idea of parity. Does this increase parity in especially college football, or does it decrease it? And that'll be interesting because, does it become price preclusive? Does it become a whole staff that's working on it, to Jake's point? But there's a lot of different directions that this could go, because to your point, we're in the AOL dial-up modem, cue that noise with the high noise and then the screechy noise. If we had a soundboard, that's what we would cue right now. That's where we are with AI. So I'm just curious to see where this goes, because the idea that you're going to be building out part of your staff, like you probably, I'd be interested in your take on this, Shane. You probably are helping the existing coaches, but you're also probably hiring more coaches or a larger staff to actually manage the AI part of things.
And when it's really going to get scary is when all of the staff are hired all at the same time, and they all look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they all wear sunglasses.
Oh, no.
And they're all looking for
Terminator.
Sarah Connor, and Judgment Day is upon us.
I'm back.
I mean, I did see Terminator, and I know what happens with that because of AI. So that's all I'm talking about.
Yeah, Jake, are you excited about this proposition? Because you're an analytics guy. So how has this kind of affected your view of because it's very similar to analytics. It basically can help analytics and is an expansion of it, essentially.
Yeah, that's how I view it. I mean, I've been, since the day ChatGPT 3 released back in, I think that was late November of 2022, I've been hooked. I just on using AI to do various things for me. It obviously was so much less capable then than it is now. But I'll give you a good example where I have significantly less time these days, no longer being a student and now being an attorney, that I don't have as much time to spend on doing my research. So the ability to sort of just upload my code into an AI agent and say I want to add this aspect to my model. And then it will work through with me and it'll ask questions. I'll have to iterate it. Won't necessarily do a perfect job the first time, but the amount of time spent on either updating code, because I think that's something actually that these AI models are the best at, is doing computer programming. But then even gathering of information. I mean, there are many times where in order to answer a question, you need to manually compile tons of information in order to just create the data that you want to work with, where it doesn't exist anywhere in a data set. And that requires a lot of either scraping and then cleaning up that data in order so that you can use it and combine it with your other data. And AI just drastically shortens that time, that time. So for me, I view it as something that can only be helpful. And that's, in the data analytics role, but then also, I'm a practicing attorney. I mean, there are so many things that even on that level that I use AI for, and to just drastically shorten how long it'll take me to do things. Because the idea of making things more efficient and not having much lossage in terms of the accuracy, and that's really where the key comes in, because I think that anyone who's used AI has definitely has come across the issue of hallucinations, where sometimes AI says things that aren't so. And when that happens, you do need to know your stuff in order to A, identify that that's happened, and B, to therefore correct it. Because I think, it's the classic joke of when I use AI when I ask AI about something that I don't know about, it seems so smart. And then when I ask it about something that I do know about, I'm like, hey, wait, it doesn't seem to know exactly what it's talking about here. So it's definitely one of those situations where it can be really, really useful when you're using it as a tool. I view it as a really, really good intern, right? That's free, or not free, I guess, but it's the cost of the subscription. It's and then it's available 24/7. I don't necessarily think that completely outsourcing everything you do to AI is necessarily smart. At least at this stage, I'm sure my answer to that will change, because I think I have a lot of confidence in the pace of development here and how much better and smarter and more capable it's getting. But I guess to put it in a couple of words, I find it super exciting, and I keep trying to incorporate it into more and more of what I do, so that I can spend, as we were sort of talking about in the football perspective, spend more of my time doing the things that a human can do better, and or just doing the analysis at the end that's honestly more substantive and growing my skill set there. Because a lot of the sort of boring data wrangling or compiling of information just doesn't need to be done by a human anymore. And it's not unlike when people had to, before we had, calculators available, and a lot of the math had to be done by hand. Once you could do the math with the calculator, you could do more things. And I think it's just kind of trying to view everything from that lens of this is just the next step, and figuring out how you work within that world where you aren't doing these sort of mundane tasks and you're focused more on the higher level stuff is paramount, because that's how you're going to thrive in this AI enabled world.
I like how you said identify in there. I'd just like to point that out. We're gonna pretend that was intentional, because it was apropos with that discussion. But no, speaking of compiling information here, compilation of information, I'm curious if you have any analytics that you'd like to discuss with Shane on the kicking and punting side of things that you found as far as follow-ups from the last conversation, or anything new.
Yeah, so unfortunately, and I meant to shoot you a message about this before the show, I just haven't had the time to go through. And I think last time we were on the show, we were talking about boom rating in the context of something that Shane had read about with developed by the FAU guy. It's like punting efficiency. And I was going to try to take that and incorporate it into my model for kicker EPA just because of the role of kickoffs and sort of trying to co-opt what had been done there. And that's sort of, how this always works in the analytics world and in really any sort of research-oriented space or academic space. You're sort of building on what's been done before. But I just haven't had the time. Now, one thing that we were talking about in this conversation kind of was shining for me is, well, I don't necessarily have the time to do this on my own, but in an AI-enabled way, I probably can just work with AI and drastically shorten those time horizons of how long it will take me to implement that stuff. So unfortunately, no, I don't have anything new. I wish I did because I found it so fun to talk about the stuff that I built with Shane last time. But the next time I come on, I will have used AI to build some of those things that we discussed. And then we can have that conversation from both of those lenses, from the AI, using the AI to beef up some of the things that I've done with my model. And then also, obviously, the insights that come from what I built.
I like it because we really did go through two great segments on the AI thing. So we've got plenty of run there. Do you just say, "Hey Claude"? Is it kind of like "Hey Google"? Is that how you get him to get it to do that AI stuff? I was telling Shane that I don't like that it's not called Jeeves. We already had Ask Jeeves. Why couldn't we have just made it Jeeves instead of Claude? That's my point of contention.
The lawyer in me wonders if someone has the copyright or trademark or whatever, the intellectual property to Jeeves. But it's a valid question because now it's Ask Chat or Ask Gemini or Ask Claude, and it's not necessarily that. But my process in terms of that is usually I rarely start with something with them without iterating on it with one of the AI models. So usually I'll be working with Claude, not Claude Code, but just regular Claude or ChatGPT, sort of iterating on what exactly I want to build or what exactly I want to add, because that'll help me develop the prompt that's going to get the AI to do things the way I want to do them, because I find it a lot easier to let AI write the prompts to give to AI because it just ends up being a cleaner process. It'll write something more fulsome because humans are just a little bit lazier. I know I am when I'm writing out a prompt and I'm just okay, do this, but I don't specify every single step that I want it to take in the analysis or in the compilation of data or whatever it is that I'm asking it to do. So usually I'll work with an AI model to build my prompt. I'll give it all the information that I have. So that means if I'm asking it to build up something that I already built, I'm going to upload my code, my code that I already have. I'm going to upload it potentially some examples of what I want it to build or analogs. In the case of I could talk through the process of what I do to add this kicking stuff. I would give it the sort of whatever source code's available from the people who built boom rating. I'd give it the Puntalytics or whatever that account built by the Yale guys is. And I'd give it everything that exists to that extent so that it can synthesize all that information. It could take what I already have so that it's not building things in a different syntax or with different language or different variable names than what I've already built. I'd give it, the information on NFL Fast R so that I can sort of work with the data sets that I know how to work with. And use the correct terms for doing so and know all of the different packages in R that it can use to do that analysis. And then I would pretty much just, once I've given all that information, I would answer questions to the extent it has any and fix any issues that it runs into. But for the most part, I'm just letting it cook at that point once I've given it everything it needs to have. So I think from a process perspective, it's not rushing into it and just sort of saying quick and dirty it, because then it might make mistakes and you're not necessarily going to get the outcome you want. And frankly, it takes a little bit of a time to run. So I kind of want to make sure that when I'm letting it do its thing, and I also, have limits on how many tokens I can use and how long the AI can run. I want to make sure it does it right, because otherwise I'm going to have to wait 4 hours before I can come back and fix whatever the problem was. And, as I said, it's not always just sitting around and okay, I'll come back 4 hours later, because I'm usually doing this at night after I worked or something like that. So it's definitely about honing your process. Now, that's what works for me. I do know that not everyone does it the same way, and that it's really about finding the workflow within AI that works best for you.
Fascinating stuff, Jake. It's great stuff. I'm glad we got onto that AI subject matter. And yeah, we'll talk more about some of the analytics stuff the next time, but be sure to tell people where they can follow you here in the meantime.
Yeah, so follow me on Twitter at JakeGrossman0. Hopefully I can get that podcast up and running when work just slows down a little bit, because it really was such a fun experience to be able to talk about that, to be able to talk about the issues that I find fascinating in football, and have these kind of conversations with people who are really in the field of analytics, who are doing this stuff on a day-to-day. One of my former guests is now, like I had mentioned, director of AI at, USC football. Another one's, working for, sports book, like another one's like, they're all doing such cool things, and being able to hear what they're doing and really like apply that into the conversations that I want to have about football and about analytics is fascinating. So yeah, hopefully I'll get that back off the ground soon, whenever time is available.
I mean, you've got a lot going with your law career, so I would say that's probably the priority at this point. But no, it was a great podcast and definitely highly recommended, even the old episodes to people. But yeah, we'll look forward to having you back on and having more analytics discussions, and we'll talk about the contracts and different things when you come back on. But appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Jake. Thanks to Jake Grossman. Appreciate him coming on and joining us. Shane and I will come back in studio and continue the conversation. Stick with us. You're listening to Shane Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. You guys see the depth of knowledge that he has there, and especially it's not only him doing it for 15 years in the NFL and coaching and all of that, but it's his coaching program. But he has, I think, a pretty advanced model and method as far as analytics and how to assess a kicker. But I think it's this combination that we were talking about, right, Shane, where it's you've got a lot of data, you've got a lot of analytics on them, but you need to have eyes on this guy and understand their tendencies and kind of apply your gut intuition to it. And I don't see there ever being a separation where that's not involved in the football process.
Yeah, the in-person, everything from the sound that the ball makes to the look on their face as they're getting ready to do something tells you their confidence level, tells you are they scared to death. There's so many factors that play into it. I feel like if I brought in AI and said, watch the video of this kick, break down this player, evaluate this player, it would become something where, because I believe and I teach in certain things as far as body positioning, posture, balance, fluidity of movement, and range of motion, all these things, it would become a cookie cutter model that said, if you don't fit this model, I give you a low grade. And maybe AI can figure out, like, well, if they're an anomaly, they still can produce really well, but they don't fit the standard of what I'd like them to have. I think that would be tough, because there are guys in the NFL that are extremely physically gifted and talented and do things that I couldn't even do, that I would say, I'd like it if they changed this. But then how do you tell somebody to fix something that's not broke? But I also know, like, your back's going to really hurt one day. There are ways that you could do this even better. But then again, how do you fix what's not broke? And in that situation, I feel like AI would become a little too like what I want it to be versus given a suggestion of maybe changing something or working on something. But then again, it still turns into, there are people that can do things I couldn't do, but yet I would still try to change a couple things to make them more efficient. But it's just such a hard thing that I think that the computer model of trying to make it look as perfect as I want it would become subjective. And then there's other coaches that are going to teach their things, and it would become subjective. So if I ended up, coming up with some way to have AI help me and the video models of breaking down kickers, there is a person out there who created an app that kind of does an AI rating of your technique of kicking a football. I saw it, and I saw some of the things the guys were doing, and it was giving them really high ratings, and I was like, ugh. Like, there's a lot of things. This person almost falls off to the left so far and almost trips and falls, but they're using like very kind of cliche things like, oh, they've got this and they've got that and they're doing this, and it's like, yeah, those are all coaching buzzwords, but they're not really making him better by having that. And I hate to get caught up in that, because I realize there are guys that I coach that are going to be different than other guys and may still be high talent. And there's going to be guys that might do exactly what I want that may not have the same talent as a guy that doesn't do what I want, but can get close, or they overcome whatever that technical flaw that I see. They might overcome it in a very athletic way that I don't think that I can truly say, well, you're not good because you don't do it my way. You're good because of the results you get. But I'd like to make it easier for you to get those results. And that's what I do when I teach, but also teaching the mental performance side of the psychology of your confidence and all that. And I don't know that AI can truly find a way to see that with someone without sitting down and having a conversation back and forth with that person. And it would become very difficult to include that into evaluation of watching just video of someone.
A lot of interesting stuff in there. One of the things I wanted to highlight is you were talking about how you've seen some people's form where you go, hey, this could lead to back problems later in life, like they're kind of using too much, they're leaning on a certain body part too much, or using the power of their back versus the power of their legs.
Well, what I mean by that is you look at the posture of someone performing an athletic skill. The straighter your body can be in a taller posture, the more you can be efficient with your movement. If you have imbalanced, quick, jerky movements where your body is contorted into a certain way, especially repeatedly, where your left shoulder is going across to the right, your right leg is going across to the left, and your chest is going down, but your leg is going forward, you're creating a superstorm of my L5S1, my L4, L5. All of those discs are just being compressed and compressed and compressed over and over and over, and twisted and compressed, all in the same side, all in the same movement repetitively. Eventually the jelly in that donut is going to squeeze out, and you're going to have problems. And then it's going to become degenerative from that point, because unless you have surgery, you'll never be able to completely repair it. You're just going to spend a lifetime of trying to alleviate the tension and stress on it until you end up running out of jelly out of that donut. And now all of a sudden you're fusing those vertebrae together because you don't have any more disc fluid in between. So I experienced this myself. I know many other guys that have gone through it. I can literally look at a high school kid and watch them kick one time and say, I bet you have to ice your back every now and then, don't you? Yes, sir. Yeah, it gets sore sometimes. Or I'll talk to guys in college, or I'll talk to guys in the NFL, and I'm like, your back hurts you a lot, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, you have no, oh, yes, I do have an idea, because I did it to myself, and I learned how to somewhat fix it with my technique. And that's a lot of why I try to do the things I do when I work with guys, is to fix the inefficient body positioning and movements that will lead to future pain and degeneration. Because while we're 16 to 22 years old, we're almost rubber and bulletproof, so we don't really feel that stuff in the moment. So we tend to just say, well, it's not going to affect me, I'm just fine. But you end up finding out at a certain point that there might be some issues with this.
The jelly leaves the donut. I like that analogy, but great stuff. We're going to have to let Shane go, but we're going to bring on Eric Kramer after the break and continue our discussion with him, have part 4 of the interview series with him. So we'll talk with him after the break. You're listening to Shane Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Happy to bring on this next guest. This is going to be kind of the culmination of a long project of ours here. This is the first of its kind for our Declassified series. We're doing part 4 of the interview with Eric Kramer. He's got a very inspiring story, and we're getting to kind of not the end of it, because there's a lot of story to be written here with Eric. But welcome to the show. I'm glad we can do this 4th part of the interview. I appreciate you giving us so much time.
Hey, Ryan, good to be with you. Thanks for having me on again.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm excited about this part because I think this is one of the parts that you really are passionate about kind of getting out to the public, because there's a whole, for people that missed it, we're actually going to put together a series where these 4 interviews will be cut together, and then it'll be one kind of continuous podcast that people can listen to and get the whole story. But to catch people up, we've talked about Eric's career and his childhood, and then his suicide attempt, and then he ended up in the hospital system and needed to work his way back, and then it ended up having some battles with a con artist and the courts here, and those are 2 things that you've kind of battled with. There's a whole podcast series on it. I'd highly recommend it, but we're going to kind of summarize that part of it in this interview here.
Very good. I think you set this up fantastic. I couldn't have said it better myself. If I could add anything, I would say there was throughout this process, which took place over about, I'm thinking about it, excuse me, I would say about 10 years or more. I would say there's been some very, very dear, special people that showed themselves to be just that. The majority of people who intervened and got involved were despicable human beings. You mentioned a certain con artist. Yes, she was. But she launched herself an unbelievable stream of people who get paid a lot of money every day that either work for the government or in some way work for themselves, perpetuate what's not good in this world.
Well, it's saddening to hear about the amount of people that took advantage of that vulnerability, because I think for people that try to be inherently good, they want to believe in the inherent good of people. That's kind of how the mindset works. Yeah. But we all know that there are people out there that do not operate by that same code, and I think that's one of the points that has been important to you to get out there, that surviving that attempt, yes, you were saved in a way because you do want to be around and you've done such great things afterwards, but it didn't save you. It made you vulnerable to these types of people.
Well, I was vulnerable, and therefore they seized on the opportunity. And when I say seized, I'm like, okay, I get Courtney Baird. She's a despicable human being. But there are people that actually are backed by the courts. So they think they did everything just right. And they have the backing of the State Bar Association here in California, and it would be that way in every state, and the Professional Fiduciary Bureau and everybody. Like, there are government agencies. This system is designed to protect the people who steal, not just Courtney Baird, but the lawyers, the professional fiduciary, everybody. It's crazy.
And how did that take place? Because obviously we want to have faith in the justice system and things being executed correctly, and at times they are, obviously, but there are some broken parts of the system that unfortunately you kind of found out firsthand. There
are, and unfortunately, you don't get to know they're there until you actually get abused by the system. So I have no faith, zero, in this judicial system, whether it's a police officer, because I was falsely arrested and falsely accused of domestic violence. It's something that never happened, never. And yet there's a police report that says I did it and that I admitted to it. So all the way up to judges making wrong decisions, to California State Bar backing a lawyer who's incompetent and does this every day of the week to people. So I don't know what you want me to say that's good that happened, other than people like my girlfriend, Anna Durgan, who at the time wasn't, then my aunt and my son, Dylan, and there were, people here and there, but and those people I'm forever grateful for. It's just that, man, it's a sad world when, if you were like me, and many people are in this situation, where you've got the mind of someone, let's say I was, 52 or 53 or so at the time of my accident. And I probably, when I did come to and did start functioning in life, I probably had the overall brain of a 6-year-old. And when you've got a judicial system in place that protects the people that take advantage of that mental 6-year-old, that is a sad state of the United States, and it's in every state. That just happened to happen to me in California. You could be in Delaware, same system.
That's one of the interesting parts of this. There's many interesting parts, but it is the whole conservatorship angle of it, because obviously that's there to provide some protection, but that often gets abused as well.
Well, yes, it's abused every day of the week in every court. So, my situation was that in order to protect herself from getting arrested, Courtney kidnapped me and went and married me while I was incapacitated. And the lawyer that represented me fought to keep me married. He fought against me being conserved. And what my family was fighting to do was to get me conserved not only of the estate, which is what he fought against, but the conservatorship of the person. Now, once you have those two things, your marriage is 100% sure of getting annulled, which eventually it did, but it took well over $100,000 of legal fees on my part to get it annulled.
Yeah, you didn't even have any real knowledge at the time that you were actually married, like that you didn't have the capacity to really do that at that time.
So,
it happened.
I got married to Courtney Baird. She married me on, I think it was December 22nd, 2016. So barely a year after shooting myself and surviving. And so this clown, Michael Harrison, he gets appointed by the court to represent me. Well, he comes to my house, and Courtney is at my house. If I'm him, I'm thinking, no, she's got to leave. That's why the detective, David Linkscheit, he came and saw me at the brain rehab center where I was. There's no Courtney Baird there. This clown comes to my house and basically tells me that my aunt is looking to make me move somewhere, and I can't vote, and I can't. But he's basically pointing her to be the bad person. When she and Anna were basically trying to annul my marriage. And after suing him for legal malpractice, which I won, the California State Bar was waiting to hear how Courtney, the case was going to come out. Was she convicted? Yes, she was, on 4 counts. She was charged with 14, I believe. She was charged on. She was then plea bargained to accept 4 felony counts. So check that box. Michael Harris. They want to know about the how the situation with my legal suit against Michael Harris came out. I won $100,000. And yet, later, I get a 9-page letter from the California State Bar stating Michael Harrison did nothing wrong. Well, if he did nothing wrong, why were you waiting to see if Courtney got convicted or not? Why were you waiting to see if Michael Harrison lost in that legal malpractice case? Because it clearly didn't matter.
Yeah, the system just ended up cannibalizing itself, essentially.
No, they all won. Didn't cannibalize anybody but me.
I do have to say, so one of the big positives that did come out of it, you said not a lot of positives. I've met her in person, and she is a force of nature. Everybody needs an Anna Durgan on their side.
No doubt. The problem is there's only one.
Yeah, exactly.
I've ever met.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of one. They broke the mold after that. But talk about that a little bit. Talk about how how she, because that's one of the most amazing parts of your story that was harder to tell in the book, because I think what people don't understand about The Ultimate Comeback, which is a great book, be sure to pick it up. We'll talk about it at the end as well. But it was hard to go into all this stuff because some of it was still ongoing. Some of the court things that you're talking about, that was still ongoing. But now we can talk about it a little bit more. And Anna, I mean, for somebody that you were, friends with back in the day and all of that, she was, she was a force of nature in all of this.
Yeah. I like I said, I've never met anybody like her, and I know I never will. And she just, there's nobody that has integrity like her. And she's not out for any fame, money, glory, nothing. She's just Anna Durgan. And she just, when she sees the wrong thing being done, she makes the wrong thing right. Plain and simple. And she's never going to run out of gas. I don't care how late in the day she has to stay up or how late at night. She will have everything documented. And so all I can say is, like you just mentioned, like if there's one person you want to have your back in life, it's her. I don't care what the scenario.
Yeah, as you were going through this, and like you said, you got married after. I didn't realize it was that soon, because a year you still had a ways to go for recovery, a year out from. Dude,
I was in a coma for 6 weeks. So I shot myself on August 18, 2015. For 6 weeks afterward, I was in a coma, which I don't obviously remember anything that happened during that time. Anna was telling me while in the hospital, I noticed one time that I had an IV, which I then took out. I also had a tracheotomy, which I also took out that tube. I have no recollection of that. Anna tells me that there was a 2-week period at the end of, when was this? End of 2016, where my lodging insurance, or whatever it's called, had run out. And so she stayed at my house for 2 weeks to wake up in the morning, take me to CNS, which is Center for Neuroskills, then go on to Santa Monica, which is her job, then which she now owns, and then she comes back to pick me up in the late afternoon and take me home, and then I got dinner, I guess. I have no recollection of those 2 weeks at all. So then I go to my sister's house in Henderson, Nevada, and I'm doing what's called Nevada Community Enrichment Program, which was very similar to what they did at CNS. And so apparently there, Courtney kept calling and texting me. I don't remember any of that. And so they had to take my phone away because she was interrupting my recovery. Don't remember any of that. Apparently, Courtney flew out to come take me home, which is a 5-hour drive. I do not remember any of that. So during that time, there was no way Courtney couldn't figure out that I had no idea that I'd even broken up with her, which I did in January of 2015. So Courtney was only the first person to take advantage. So the fact that you can even get married while incapacitated is wrong.
Yeah, you were so malleable and vulnerable at that point, and it is amazing to me too that you had previous contact with her and then she came back into the picture. I think that's something that people forget, that oftentimes these are people that have previous touch with people in their lives, these con artists.
Yeah. And what I came to find out only later was that in the first go-around with Courtney, which was kind of a 3 or so-ish year off again, mostly off, then on, relationship, nobody even liked her. So how much do you think people liked Courtney when she came back?
Oh yeah. Well, and I imagine, because obviously they're trying to get somewhere, which isn't a positive place. They're trying to take advantage, but they're positioning themselves as someone that's trying to help. They're saying, "Oh yeah, I'm here. Oh, at a time of need. That's why I'm back." And then they get deeper and deeper via that, "Hey, I'm just here to help." Whereas you've got concurrently this other person, Anna, running interference on the outside, who actually is trying to help, but it can become hard to tell which is which until kind of all the dust settles.
Yeah, it's very well put. And people like Courtney did a great job of sort of manipulating me so that she had a great way, as I look back, of isolating me away from people. So she basically hurt herself or told stories about somebody else that I would believe to keep me away from them. Michael Harrison did the same thing.
He participated in that. The lawyer did.
Yeah. So here's all this evidence that was in the neuropsychologist report that he had initially spoken with David Linkshite, who was the now retired detective, and Linkshite told him that Courtney had already admitted to him to stealing $50,000 from me and forging 4 checks. By the way, part of that $50,000 was $10,000 that came out of Griffin's memorial fund. That's my son who was deceased. All $10,000 of that money from his memorial fund came after he'd passed away. So she had no qualms taking money from someone that she actually knew who was passed away. And when I say Michael Harrison, the lawyer, here's what he did. So in court, the first person to testify was David Linkshite, who I don't even remember him being there. Anna had to show me the transcripts that he was there and even spoke. She had to show me the transcripts that I spoke. So I'm standing there in a courtroom 2 weeks after getting married, and I don't even know David Linkshite is speaking. And the first thing he says is that Courtney admitted to him to stealing $50,000. And that was the basis of me getting conserved of the estate. And here you have Michael Harrison telling the court that there was no money in my account. I can't even pay for parking. Why do you think there's no money in my account? Because Courtney stole it all. And yet he's accusing Anna Durgan of looking into my accounts to notice that Courtney Baird stole all this money. So he basically tells the court he reserves the right to prosecute or take legal action against Anna Durgan and whoever else. So he then tells me, Eric, you should look into getting an attorney, which I then do, to sue Anna.
Yeah, it just got so backwards, and that's what occurs to me about, because obviously now with the benefit of hindsight and seeing how everything happened, it's clear what happened. But at the time, especially with your capacity issues and everything going on, is somebody that's convincing could convince some people and affect things in the way that Courtney did. But it's sad that happens and that it happened that way. But that's why I like that one truly good thing that came out of it, which was, unfortunately, it took a very long time and it was very stressful and all of that. But the right thing did win in the end, and you and Anna ending up together and now working together and working towards trying to fix some of this stuff and get the information out there.
That's a great point. And I'll say it like this. So there's never going to be another Courtney Baird. There's never going to be another Michael Harrison. There's never going to be another Eileen Federizo. She was a knucklehead fiduciary. She was a professional conservator. And the reason there's never going to be another Michael Harrison, for starters, is that Anna now, as you just mentioned, through the benefit of experience only, that Anna and I have changed our living trust to read that in the event that I'm ever incapacitated, doesn't matter the reason, that I want to be conserved of the estate and of the person immediately. The person who's going to now represent me is a woman named Lisa McCarley. Lisa is the same kind of attorney that Michael Harrison is, but having known her now and know that, Lisa, these are my wants and desires ahead of time, because when you're incapacitated, you can't choose your own lawyer. How crazy is that? I had to have Michael Harrison, who I never met. Court appointed him. Well, now I've appointed my own attorney prior to being ever incapacitated again. So there's going to be one lawyer for me, and her name is Lisa McCarley. She knows Anna would be the same case.
Well,
so we had to learn the hard way. Let me say this one last thing.
Go ahead.
Had I named Anna my conservator, which she now is, had I named her my conservator, she could have taken that report by what's his name? The neuropsychologist. Can't think of his name right now. But she could have taken his report and so she knew where the marriage took place, which was the Santa Barbara courthouse. Once that appeared on my credit card, she knew that's where we got married. She could have driven there, which wasn't a far drive, and walked in, showed them the neuropsychologist report, and knew that Eric's incapacitated. He cannot get married. Done, over with. But She didn't know that. I didn't know that back then. Someone like Michael Harrison. So here's the other thing. After my aunt was applied for conservatorship of the estate, my estate. That was in order to keep costs down and not have some person like Eileen Federizo, who was a professional fiduciary, do it. And so, Michael, where was I going with this? Michael Harrison was acting like she was the one that was stealing all the money, which is crazy. She's the one trying to protect me. And eventually, it got to be too emotionally stressful for her. And so a name that Michael Harrison threw out there, Eileen Federizo, they went and spoke to, and they told her all of the theft that had occurred by Courtney, that she admitted to everything to the detective, that she'd forged 4 checks of mine, and they explained to her all of the theft. They showed her all of it that was occurring on my credit card. Guess how many of those thefts she didn't approve to Raymond James Trust Department? Take a guess.
0.
Very good. She stopped 0 fraud. 0. And charged me $17,000 to do it. Her lawyer, Eugene, I forget what his last name is, he charged me $33,000. Between the two of them, I paid them $50,000 to do nothing. And guess what the Professional Fiduciary Bureau thought of that?
They probably didn't think enough about it.
No, they thought long and hard and thought she did a great job.
Which means
anytime you have a job that pays you $17,000 to do nothing, I say take it, knowing that by doing nothing, you're gonna get no reprimand of any kind from anybody. How could there be a better job than that?
Yeah, it's a wild story and situation, and I'm glad you're on the other side of it, but I'm also glad you're advocating for people that are, could end up in the same situation or something similar, and educating people. And I appreciate you coming on the show to talk about the whole story, because I know it's a lot to talk about, but you're passionate about getting it out there. My question on the way out is, what's next?
Well, I'm hopefully the best is yet to come, as they say. And so you'd mentioned the book earlier. It's called The Ultimate Comeback. And that came out, I want to say, what are we, in 2026? I think it was November. I think it was my birthday, actually, November 6, 2023, or 2024, one of those two. And so that book, as you had mentioned, Courtney had not yet been convicted. Michael Harrison had not yet, I'd not won my judgment against him yet. And so none of those details are in that book. Then that book led to a podcast called The Quarterback and the Con Artist. And I think you can probably figure out who both of those two people are. And that podcast, I think, did well, but not like I was hoping. Excuse me. And right now, there's a shopping agreement in place between myself and a production company called Texas Crew. And they're wanting to shop my story to the likes of Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime. And if that happens, which I have a strong suspicion that it will, then that's what's next. And when you can tell this story tell it in the form documentary, docuseries, then it comes to life. And that's what I'm hoping will happen, because there's so many bad actors in this that go way beyond Courtney Baird. And I would really love to, show those people, illuminate who those people are. And they have faced no consequences in life at all and never will.
And that's where the education and like you said, shedding the light is so important. But we'll be looking forward to that. I'll be keeping up with you on that and the developments there. But really appreciate you joining us for all of this time. And like I said, we're going to be cutting this together, so it's a complete episode that people can listen to and then get an idea for the full picture as it stands right now. But we'll look forward to having you back on, and really appreciate you going through your journey with us.
Ryan, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your interest in having me on and going to the lengths that you have and will regarding this story. So again, I'm really appreciative of the attention you're giving it.
Happy to do it, and we'll be following along with you and helping you as you are doing all these great initiatives too, mental health charitable organizations, all sorts of different things. So we'll be supporting you in the future too, and appreciate your time.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ryan.
All right, thanks, Eric. Talk to you later.
You bet. Bye-bye. Thanks
to Eric Kramer. Appreciate him coming on and summarizing that story, especially in the 4 parts. Like I said, we'll be cutting that together and having it as a kind of a standalone episode for people, because I think it's a story worth sharing and hearing. But Jeff and I will come back after the break and catch up on the sports week here. So stick with us. You're listening to Shane Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Who was a busy man here at the truck show. I saw a lot of advertisement for the truck show. Jeff, how did that go? It looked like a good event.
Oh, the truck show was great. It was a great success. It was the best year they had. They had over 180 trucks on hand. Their attendance was up, and it was great. It had a really good time. Met a lot of great listeners. So yeah, it was a good time.
Was the feedback that they would like more Enya from Jethro?
You know, it's amazing that Enya was never brought up
really
in any conversation.
Well,
whatsoever.
The people that I approached to tell you about that apparently didn't make it to you.
No, they didn't.
My plants in the truck show parking lot. No, that seemed like a cool event. I saw. You were everywhere. You were all over the place at that truck show. That's a lot of so wait, what are they're showing off the different models of trucks? Do they decorate their trucks?
They don't decorate their trucks. Some of them are show trucks.
Okay.
And then most of them are just sponsors trucks that are driven daily. The trucks that the owner of the company that I work for, VMAX Transportation, he had his show truck. Dave had his show truck out there, and then a few other trucks that they use on a daily basis. But there were some absolutely stunning show trucks out there, and it was just really cool. You know, when it gets down to dusk, all the trucks turn their lights on and lights up, and all the kids walk around and see all the trucks with the lights on. It was a really cool. They had truck pulls out there, and there were food trucks, and we had live music. Adam Sanders, who is a national artist, played Friday night, and it was a great show. And yeah, it was just a really good time.
I want to. That does sound like a very cool show, and I'm glad Jethro was able to be part of it there. And I want to suggest decoration of the trucks, though. I feel like that could ramp it up for next year. Could have like themed trucks.
It's not a bad idea. I'm trying to get on the board next year.
Okay.
So we'll if they let me on the board, maybe I can bring that up.
I wouldn't go with any of my suggestions right out of the gate.
No, because I want to be on the board and not get kicked off the board. So.
Yeah, that might be playing a little fast and loose with it, but no, that's a great event, and yeah, I'm glad Jethro got out there and got some got some publicity and all of that. And yeah, that's a cool convalescence of what you do. Like you said, you drive truck during the day, and then we had the country music, we had Jethro, we had non-decorated trucks, but next year decorated trucks. The food trucks would have been the ones that I was interested in seeing.
A lot of great food trucks out there.
Those would have been
some of the best barbecue I've ever had. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
See,
good.
Those are the ones that I think would have been the most visually appealing to me.
Yeah.
Is the food trucks.
Right.
I mean, rather than the show trucks, which I'm sure were very nice.
Yeah.
But the food trucks had decals and they were decorated. See, those are decorated, and I bet those were pretty popular. The food trucks.
They were very popular. I think there were 6 or 7 food trucks. 3 of them sold out both Friday and Saturday.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah, because I'm sure you guys had pretty high volume, and yeah, everybody's going there to have some fun, have a meal, enjoy the show, all that stuff. But yeah, I'm glad that went well. We'll look forward to Jeff being on the board. We'll run some sort of campaign for him on the show. I
like that.
I don't know how we do that. We haven't really run a campaign, but I'm good with trying. Vote Jeff Isaac for the truck decorating board. What's the board?
Just the board.
The board.
I'm not going to bring up decorating until I actually make the board. You know, this Seinfeld episode's just running through my brain about the urban sombrero.
Oh yeah,
bringing up the urban sombrero for the cover of the magazine.
That was Elaine's big first opening salvo with being head of the J. Peterman catalog. That's about the level of suggestion that I'm making. Except I'm not as sold on it as Elaine was. I just think it'd be funny. But I do picture these nice decorated trucks. I think that would be fun. A Jethro truck would be cool. A Jethro decorated truck.
See, and I've been on Scott about a station vehicle that he just poo-poos all the time. I'm like, we need a station vehicle. That's what we need. And he's like, no.
he's vetoed that one, huh? Okay. Well, we'll keep at it. Once you're on the board, you'll have more power. I'm still not sure what board, but once you're part of the board, then you'll be less bored and you'll have more power. But we'll take another break here. We'll regroup. We'll actually talk some sports in the next segment. I think Jeff wants to talk some baseball, so we'll do that after he canceled his subscription here.
I came close. My hand was on the button.
We'll talk about that after the break. Stick with us. You're listening to Shane Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Coming back here in studio with Jeff Isaac, who is considering, I think, or was considering dropping his MLB TV membership here. And I'm curious about that because I was having this conversation, Jeff, with another person here, actually Elaine, who is going to be on the show with me on Saturday, because we'll be telling the audience about that, but I'll be filling in for Steve on Saturday. And we were talking about kind of the ability to cover, sports that are doing well versus not so well. And we've been in a good period when we've had these shows here where the Detroit sports teams, definitely no correlation or causation there, that we were on the air and then the teams were playing well. But this is one of the lower trajectories with the Tigers. The Red Wings kind of missed the playoffs. People are down on the Pistons, which they shouldn't be. That's a whole separate issue, though. They're down further than they should be on the Lions. We've talked about that on the shows, but it is a long season. So what recently made you do that? Because I would have thought it was like a couple weeks ago, not more recently than that.
No, it was the Cleveland series over the weekend, and then the way they played in Houston, which they're getting healthy. They had their issues with their starting staff being healthy as well, but there's no excuses that you can't take 2 or 3 at least, or sweep Houston, and they're just not playing good baseball. And it's just maddening because it's just everything. I think AJ Hinch is over managing. It seems like, the last 2 years, every move he made worked, and this year it's just the complete opposite. Every button he's pushing is just not working. And it's now this crazy injury you hear this about Winslow Perez getting the band to the eye? The stretching
I don't think
band?
no.
You didn't hear about
no,
this?
I didn't hear this. Yeah.
So after Tuesday's game, he goes into the clubhouse and they go and they get treatment and stuff like that and take care of their bodies. Well, apparently he was stretching with one of the bands.
Oh, yep. I've done this before.
And
I don't think I've hit myself in the eye, but I have hit myself with it.
Oh, I think the handle came disconnected or something, and it hit him right in the eye. And I guess it's a pretty serious injury. They're all concerned, and he's getting evaluated on a daily basis. And I'm like, if that doesn't sum up our season, I don't know what. Only if, except that it could have been Tarek Skubal coming back and pitching, and then doing that and hitting himself in the face with a stretching band.
So when Ciel Perez is on the DL,
he's not on the IL. They're evaluating him.
But if he goes on the IL, he's going to be on the IL for Murphy's Law. Yeah. That's the injury there.
Basically,
I think. I mean it is kind of amazing. I mean, the part about Hinch is interesting to me because we were having that deep analytics discussion with Jake Grossman earlier, and he was talking about kind of the usage of analytics, and Hinch has always been pretty numbers and analytics heavy. Even he's kind of an interesting one because I think he gets a bit of a reputation for being, for people that maybe don't know, being a bit of a gut guy, because it's like, oh, okay, yeah, he's going with this exchange of Jahmai Jones for Kerry Carpenter, or switching all these pieces around, or here's where he's going to use this middle reliever. But really a lot of that is driven by analytics, and he's a pretty analytics heavy guy. But I think this is where you have to, I understand there's kind of a bell curve that happens where you say, okay, this is working, and so I'm going to stick with it. Then when it starts to not work, you don't abandon it immediately, because if overall it has worked, then I think you've got to ride and say, okay, this is the down part of the curve and it's going to come back up. But we've been in this down part for a long time with the current iteration of players. I know that a lot of the discussion surrounds mainly Jahmai Jones, because he's one of the ones that's kind of one of these platoon guys that I can see the belief in him. I really can, as far as like he has been somebody that has been serviceable at times.
Absolutely.
But not at all recently.
No,
and I think
this whole season.
Yes. And I think that's what at some point we have to say, okay, we've got to either upgrade these pieces as far as this is where it makes the deadline, I think, even more interesting, because it's like, well, they could go any direction right now because they're still not that far out of the hunt, but it's probably not going to happen this year, especially with all the Murphy's Law things happening. This doesn't seem in the cards, although they could bounce back, I suppose. But then it's, hey, let's see what we have in some of these other people too, because I know there's, you have a spot for Jahmai Jones and some of the other guys at the major leagues. Maybe that's a spot that's better utilized by somebody else that needs some experience, that we need to see something out of. That, I think that's something they have to entertain, especially if we're not playing for this year anymore, which may be a bridge we cross soon here.
It'll be interesting what they do. They have the White Sox in this weekend. They have to win. They have to win anyway. They have to win series now. Yeah, it'll be interesting when they put up the white flag, because obviously, being the manager, he can't do that yet. And, every time I hear him talk, he's backing Jahmai Jones, but it's like, how long are you going to stick this out? How long until you get desperate? And the whole thing is they're not desperate yet because they're within striking range of that wild card. And that's the sad part, is if they were playing well, the American League is so down.
It's wide open right now.
It is so wide open. And this is their chance to get to the World Series with Tarek Skubal. But you've got to deal Skubal, because I believe they could win without him. Our depth is our starting rotation. Our starting rotation has not been the issue, except with Flaherty at times. But their starting staff is not the issue. And now with them healthy for the most part, we'll see what Verlander gets us on Father's Day. But it's not the issue. It's the offense is just so up and down. June got off to such a great start, and I was getting excited. I had to kind of hold back, but I was starting to go. I mean, I think they were within 5 games at one point of the wild card, and now they're back. I think it's still only 6.5, which is really, with as much time left in the season, it's so doable. But they have to. They just find a different way each game to lose. It's defensively. It's this. It's a fundamental mistake, or it's defensively, and then the offense goes quiet, and it's Matt. This is why I keep my hair this short, because I can't pull it out, Ryan.
I think we may need a counseling session with Jeff. Baseball, I mean, man, it's a long season for baseball. So that's part of it, is once you get into kind of this mid-season, whether it's a lull or what have you, it's like a malaise that comes over the players and fans and all of that. But you didn't put yourself out of your misery, though. You didn't pull the trigger.
I did not pull the trigger. We'll see how this weekend goes. But yeah, I mean, man, all winter, all I look forward to is Tigers baseball. And it's not meant to be this frustrating. It really isn't. We're too talented of a team.
Well, and you make a good point about the starting rotation, because that is something that is going to be very strong, because I think if there has been some bright spots so far, obviously the injuries have been tough, all of that, but you've seen Montero pitch well at a higher volume. You've seen Melton come back and be strong and looking like a more than serviceable starter.
Absolutely.
And yes, Flaherty has had his numbers. I still pertain that I feel like his numbers are not representative of what he's actually been doing. He has these blips during the game where he looks good for a large majority. If you actually watch the starts, it's like, okay, he's pitching pretty well, and then there's a bit of a cascading effect. Sometimes it's a fielding error, sometimes it's him, walking a couple guys, and then that 20 pitch sequence just gets very out of control for him. I'm not saying he's necessarily long for the future of the Tigers, but either way, whether he's out of there or not, you still then have Job and Olsen on the horizon, hopefully, as healthy pitchers next year. And you add them with Melton and Montero, and then you see what happens with Mize. He's another one that is a trade candidate given the contract situation.
I'd love to see the Tigers sign him.
That would be good. And then obviously add in Valdez, who's signed, and now we're already at that's 6 guys right there. So yeah, the horizon's looking decent, but yeah, right now Jeff might cancel his MLB TV in the meantime.
We'll give it another go this week. I say this almost not every week, but this week has been tough.
We're going to take a quick break to counsel Jeff in the break, but we'll come back and finish up the show here. Stick with us. You're listening to Shane Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. The counseling session in the break failed. We did not. We did not get very far.
I feel better.
Well, okay. Well, it was a success. Hey, how about that? We switched to the wings, which I'm sure will be a topic on the weekend show, because you're not quite rid of me yet this week, because we'll have our regular shows tomorrow, Conrad's Country Bunker, and then Rowdy's Ride Home. And then on Saturday, which I've always said is one of my favorite days, it's going to be less favorite for people, because instead of the sports professor, you're getting the substitute teacher on Saturday. I'll be filling in for Steve on Saturday before the Polka Pops as the opening act for the Polka Pops. That's how I'll look at myself on Saturday. I'll be the opening act.
It's a good opening act.
I mean, I'm okay with it. We'll be bringing Elaine Shercliffe, friend of the show, who is actually going to be covering the PWHL now, and so she's been covering the Griffins, and we'll be covering the Detroit I think we have them currently named as the Yeti-ettes.
The Yeti-ettes.
Yeah.
Yes.
To have a callback to a previous show. And you missed the show, Jeff, where we brought on Keith Gave, and he had some good name suggestions for us.
I did miss that show.
Yeah, I didn't have the heart to suggest Yeti-ettes. I don't think I got that out there with them. But yeah, then we got the polka pops and polka overtime and all the polkas you can handle. I asked Big G on the last show what his favorite polka was, and I thought I was going to surprise him, and he had the quickest answer he's ever had to any question I've ever asked him. And it was something about a big rubber ball, a red rubber ball, and he knew the artist and everything. So that maybe that'll be played on Saturday. But after that, we will have a place where you could request
Absolutely.
a song. Not that one, not Red Rubber Ball, the polka. Keep that for the previous era.
No, and the next couple shows are big too, because this week we get 2 more people, the 2 final people registered for the 100th show celebration, which will take place a week from Saturday on the 27th. So yeah, it's we're gonna have fun this weekend.
So how do they get registered? Do they call in?
Yeah, they're gonna be a specific caller.
Okay.
Yep. Usually the 4th. How you do the 4th caller?
Oh, that's how you do it. We have not really taken a caller on this show, so
No.
I don't know how to do that.
No, I can't imagine what those calls would be.
they would hurt my feelings with those calls. But no, I was excited about that. So yeah, so make sure to tune in to the All Request show and request Enya. But then you can be the 4th caller and hopefully join the celebration here.
Absolutely. You can make your request in studio. There's food, there's cake. It's a party. It's fantastic.
What kind of cake?
I'm not sure yet. I'm thinking ice cream cake.
Oh, that's good.
I'm thinking ice cream cake.
The Fudgy the Whale for the Office fans out there. But be sure to tune into that. And then we've got more polkas on Sunday.
Love the polka pops.
Yeah, I do too. I'm going to be excited to hand off to them on Saturday, but they'll be back in on Sunday. And then we've got Sports Intel 7 to 9 on Monday, and then we'll be back 7 to 9 on Thursday with a sports project in between. I think the sports professor will be back. I think this will just be limited.
Where's Steve?
Well, he's getting a little touch up. He's going into the shop and getting a little touch up here, and then he's calling into the bullpen, and then I think he'll be back and healthy. So Rock will have to deal with me on Saturday.
Those tires rotated, Steve.
And exactly. Just needs a little detail. And then he'll be back up and running. Our sports professor, our younger sports host. You did realize that he's the younger one, right, Jeff?
I did hear that.
Yeah,
that rumor is floating around.
Yeah, so I'm the senior one, I guess now. But thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Thanks for kicking it with us, and we'll talk to you next week.
This episode is brought to you by Encore Business Group, Eric Cole Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Williams Chiropractic, Elite Winning Solutions, and Sal's Complete Home Painting and Handyman Services. Shane Graham's Extra Points with Ron Walsh airs live Thursdays 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Jethro.fm.